Oh, I can't forgive. Yes, you can. You can forgive in an instant. How long does it take to forgive somebody? As soon as you decide to do it. When people answer these questions with each other, something shifts inside them in the answering. I never facilitate a small group. I never make sure they're on topic, but I know if they ask themselves the question, what resentment are you holding? What forgiveness are you unwilling to give? What doubts do you have? What's the no you've been postponing? What's the yes you said that you no longer mean? Come on. When I make a commitment, I keep my word. No, you don't. You're a human being. Dissent versus lip service, we all know, in high control systems, businesses, hospitals, schools, you can't say no. You know, we're team players here. We're on board. Somebody comes as a consultant, they say, how do we get all these people on board? How do we get middle management on board? How do we get supervisors on board? As if we're in a boat and I'm the captain, you know. And the alternative is to say, what doubts do you have? All right? If you don't let people directly explain what, and you say, what doubts do you have about this? What doubts do you have about what we're doing here? What's the no you've been postponing? There's 5 of these questions. What no are you putting off? And they share in a small group. And what's the resentment you hold that nobody knows about? I certainly didn't come for that. And if I can name that resentment, then I can change my relationship to that resentment. I change my story where that resentment is no longer central. Now it's just a little fact of memory. Nobody can keep their commitment. People change their mind all the time. And so the idea of these questions, the dissent question, is if I can say to another human being, especially somebody that I'm not close to, here's the resentment. I all of a sudden am no longer owned by my resentment. I'm not owned by my lack of forgiveness. I'm not owned by the fact I said yes and don't mean it. I'm not owned by the fact that I have deep doubts that I have not put into words. And that's what's powerful. That's transformation as a linguistic endeavor. The other question is one of commitment. The world wants to barter, quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. The whole commodification of the culture is based on barter, on commerce. The marketplace is where a legitimate barter. I'll buy that from you, here's some money, give me something in return. But we've taken that into our own lives. And so we think the way to get people to change inside businesses is to talk them into it. Give them incentives. How do we incentivize people? How do we incentivize mothers to come to school, to pay attention to their daughters in neighborhoods where they don't do that? So in marginalized neighborhoods, they say, well, parents are not involved in the school. Let's pay them. So New York, for 5 years or 4 years, paid them money to come to school to talk about the well-being of their children. Had no impact on the children's behavior, children's performance, anything. So the idea that I can buy from you what I want, that's where these conversations are creating alternatives. So commitment, what's the promise you're willing to make? That's what I want to know. What's the promise you're willing to make with no expectation of return? Nothing. What kind of deal is that? What's in it for me? I love that question. What's in it for you? You know the answer to that question is? Nothing. Now you want to do it or not? And then you had people make promises. And in the community work, it's a nightmare. Because most people, including myself, say, oh yeah, I'll do that. And nobody's watching, bye-bye. And so that's the commitment. What's the price you're willing to pay? What's the commitment I'm willing to make? What's the promise I'm willing to make? And what's the price I'm willing to pay? Bring that into being. Once I make that promise in public, I'm dead. Now I'm accountable. Real accountability in a business setting is when teams of people go around the room and each say, here's the promise I'm willing to make in support and service of the objectives that we've agreed on. Performance appraisals let people off the hook. Because every time I give a performance appraisal, I'm telling them something they've heard 20 times before. And if you're smart, you know how to defend against performance. I know how to defend against feedback. People give me feedback, and I say, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm working on it. Okay. The last one is the one of gifts versus deficiency. This is the hardest one. The last thing people remember is to talk about gifts. So the dominant culture is oriented around deficiency. Journalism, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with us? And that takes me nowhere. It's true. I interrupt people all the time. I have a whole list of deficiencies I've been working on vigorously. All right, like keeping my mouth shut. And I'm 60 years into this project, and I'm showing no results. My conclusion is not that I'll be shot for that, but working on deficiency doesn't take you anywhere. It only shuts you down. I don't know why, but it's so hard for me to explore my gifts. And I think the reason is that I'm terrified that it will make me really accountable for my life. If I acknowledge my gifts, then I better do something with my life. And I'm running out of time. If it's my deficiencies, well, poor me. Eulogy is the only time my gifts ever get played out, and I'm going to miss it. Just by a few days, that's what really irritates me. Just by a few days. And so what we're trying to do is premature eulogy is the gifts conversation. And you tell people not what I like about you, not what you're good at. Gee, you're really, I tell, what did you do in the last 5, 10, 12 minutes that touched me, that meant something to me? And if I don't tell you, you'll never know. I can't call you in a week and say, remember? No, I don't remember anything last week. And so every time we're together, we have to end with a conversation of, here's what you did, naming names. It was a great group. It was one of these. That's not doing it. Naming names. Here's what you did. You paid attention. You told me a part of yourself I just didn't know about. You were very vulnerable. You kept disagreeing with everything we said. That was extremely useful. Thank you. Each person does it with the other 2 or 3 people. And at the end, you do one last bit of coaching. You said, if somebody says something nice to you, just say thank you. I like hearing that. Don't tell them another story you made up about how your brother is better at that than you are. How, oh, I got lucky. Being in a room with you brought out the best of me. Thank you for being cause and me being effect. One more. And so just say thank you. I like hearing it. And if you're feeling brave, and the other thing about these questions, they build enough trust then to make problem solving useful, then to make criticism useful, then to make deficiency useful. And so these are high trust building. And if you really trust, you say, thank you, I like hearing that, tell me more. And I'm so willing to hear about my deficiencies. Because when somebody gives me a hard time, I say, could you be specific? Did I do that? Was that me or just your perception? I'd like to sort that out. So with gifts, you do the same thing. You say, I loved hearing that. Tell me more. And if you're really brave, you say, what did that mean to you? What does it mean to say to another human being, what difference am I making in your life? And to do it on a non-crisis basis. I don't want to wait until I have my heart attack before I have to get into these conversations.